You have entered a world of wit and weirdness, of humor and horror. This is Channel Ab3. Greetings, I'm Bruno III, the mastermind behind this podcast. I'd like to share that in addition to crafting bizarre and whimsical tales, I'm also involved in the world of real estate. Whether you're in the market to sell your home, find a new one, or explore real estate investment opportunities, don't hesitate to get in touch with me at albertbruno3@kw.com. And now, without further ado, let's dive into today's episode.
Ophelia Explains It All.
Listen to me. All of you, sit down and listen to me. You will listen to me. Do you think I'm kidding? One press of this button and I'll kill us all. There. That's better. Back in your seats. Get the camera back on me, please. All right then. Shh. My name is Ophelia. And just because I'm wearing a bomb to a town council meeting, it does not mean I'm some kind of a lunatic. I am here to voice my opposition to the referendum to fill in the sinkhole on Guren Street and replace it with a park. It's not that I have anything against parks. They can be wonderful things. But that place is hallowed ground. I should know. I lived there most of my life. It's part of my very first memory. I was just a nursling, and I tumbled out of a dream to find myself lying on what I would later learn was called a futon, that sat in the center of what I would come to know as the solarium. I felt cold and wet. I wanted to cry, but then I saw I wasn't alone. Mendel Boggs was in the glass room with me, playing his Fairlight CMI and scowling. His expression changed when he saw I was watching, and his bearded face broke into a wide smile. I didn't know the words to describe how I felt, but I loved him from the very first. He was my papa. Do you understand now? That big old house that had stood so long at the end of Guren Street was my home. The person you called Old Man Boggs raised me there, in secret. Because of my condition, it wasn't safe for me to play with other children, but I was never bored. I had all kinds of toys, from doll houses to teddy bears to tin soldiers. Papa always made time for us to play games like hide and seek, backgammon, and the world of Cinnabar. And I never needed school, because Papa's library took up 3 floors. He taught me the basics of reading, and from there I went on to read at least 1 book a day. One day it would be the collected works of Jane Austen, and another it would be the physician's desk reference. The only thing I wasn't allowed to read was the books of poetry. Don't think I was lonely. Papa was the only friend I needed, but there were always visitors to the house. None of you ever saw them arrive, but they were there. The New York millionaire Boris Fowler vacationed with us every spring. He said our basement was the only place he could really relax. He always came alone, leaving all of his servants and bodyguards waiting in a hotel on the outskirts of town. Boris Fowler always brought all his financial records so he and Papa could get roaring drunk and do their taxes. What I remember most about him is his bright red hair, and how every evening after supper he would smoke a cigar and tell stories about his crimes and misdemeanors. In the summer, Dr. Helena Tarr would come visit. She had bright eyes, crooked teeth, and long hair she kept anchored beneath a brightly colored babushka. She was the only doctor that ever gave me any kind of a checkup, and she always found the state of my physicality very perplexing. The nights she was there were always marked by an early supper of lamprey pie. Then she and Papa would retreat to his bedroom and not emerge until the afternoon of the next day. No one ever came to see us in the fall. That was our time. Papa would pick a project and spend the next 3 months working on it. One year we built ships in bottles. Another we taught ourselves the accordion. My favorite, though, was the September to December we spent making prank calls to the payphones at Alexandria University. By the time the first snowflake fell, we had engineered a blood feud between the political science faculty and the first-year culinary arts students. Sacharow came with the winter. Every November, his superiors sent him on a pilgrimage that mirrored the Appalachian Trail. His masters kept him busy at this time of the year, delivering precious godweb elixir to heretics and scientists all along the coast. I was always a little afraid of Sacharow. His leprous skin, his unblinking eyes, the way he was always chuckling at some private joke. During his visits, all he and Papa talked about was somewhere to find more gods to add to his collection. That's right. I said gods. Papa had dozens of them locked away in his study. He kept them in little bottles that he sealed tight with wire and red wax. He kept them on a shelf above his desk, arranged like spices. Some were full of squishy parts, some were just cloudy, and some were full of what looked like little crumpled leaves. He could tell me the story of how each was caught. Some stories were exciting, like the time he saw Yegorthik the Mad gropingly pull its gelatinous green body through the crack in the earth. He told me that after vigintillions of years, the stars were right and it was ravening for delight. Luckily, he was able to catch it with his trusty butterfly net. Some were sad, like the time he found Togar, Lord of Chaos, drowned in a rain barrel. Using the information he received from Sacharow as a guide, he would travel the world in search of the divine. Once, I asked Sacharow why the gods in Papa's study were tiny and frail. How could gods be put to death with the same ease as a mouse? There was a mischievous twinkle in the old leper's eye when he explained that these gods seeped from world to deliver their telepathic gospels to the beings they found there. But when they came to Earth, they grew weak and found themselves trapped, powerless. All they could do was hide and dream of a rapture that would never come. That was the thought that made Sacharow so happy. No matter how right the stars might be, the world would always be wrong. Hey, don't pay attention to those sirens. Listen to me. I'm not done yet. This is too important. This is just how the house lived. You haven't heard how the house died. I was 12 years old when Papa left home for the last time. It was a warm fall evening, and he had just learned where Diavini, the Chaos Sultan, had gone into hiding. He couldn't wait to find it. He'd almost caught Diavini once before, but it had escaped by crawling into a gopher hole. He stood there at the doorway with his 2 suitcases, one for his clothes and the other for his bottles, tweezers, and formaldehyde. Papa always left me behind whenever he traveled. What choice did he have? I was not ready for the world. Maybe I'm still not. But I knew how to take care of myself, and he trusted me with every room in the house except for his study. That door he locked with the same key he used to secure me in our home. Once he was gone, I went to the kitchen to have a good cry. That was my favorite room for crying. I think it was the acoustics. Then I made some lunch, took 3 sips of my medicine, and went to bed early. I could sleep for days if I wanted, and sometimes I did. It made the time alone go by faster. It was the 3rd day after Papa left, my 3rd day straight of sleeping, that I felt a hand run through my hair. I started awake, but didn't move or open my eyes. I was too scared. This wasn't Papa, I just knew that, but how had they gotten into the house? I couldn't unlock the doors, and Papa had the only key. Oh my. The voice that spoke was sweet and unfamiliar. Look how you've grown. Something about those words made me angry, and anger gave me enough courage to sit up and look at the intruder. No one was there. I kept the 2-shot Derringer that Papa had given me hidden in the oldest of my doll houses. I retrieved it and spent the next hour searching the house from top to bottom. And it wasn't until I reached the basement that I found anything wrong. There was a crack in the floor. It stretched along the space between the wine racks and the hunting trophies. It was a foot wide and damp to the touch. I placed an overturned table over the hole and retreated to the library to read the volumes on architecture. 2 weeks went by, and I knew that Papa would be home soon. I had convinced myself that what I had experienced was a dream. With my worries tucked away, I made ready for Papa's return. I tidied up my room and the library. I cleaned every nook and cranny of the solarium. I baked his favorite kind of cookies and made fresh lemonade. That done, I decided to pass the time reading the apocryphal book of Tobit. 2 more weeks went by, and I started to grow afraid. This was too long. He was never gone more than 15 days, even if he never caught anything. Those kinds of trips always left him in a glowering temper, and I knew it was best to stay as far away from him as the house would allow. He never hit me, but he could lash out verbally if got underfoot. He would shout at me, calling me strange names. Papa had been gone for 6 weeks when the electricity was shut off. I had been expecting it and wasn't concerned. I knew the house so well I could navigate it with my eyes closed. Winter was growing closer. That did concern me. So I spent my days in the solarium and my nights in my bed under a pile of quilts and blankets. My dinners were cold, canned ravioli. On the day of the first snowfall, the house began to shake. For 10 seconds, everything rattled and shuddered around me. Books fell off shelves. Plates crashed from cabinets. The walls of the solarium cracked in a dozen places, but didn't break. So I spent the rest of that day cleaning broken glass, writing furniture, and straightening pictures. When I got to the basement, I found the hole had widened and begun to collapse downwards. Wine bottles and hunting trophies had tumbled into it. The sight made me want to cry. I thought to myself that this was what dying must feel like. A pair of hands settled onto my shoulders. A voice said, "The doors were never locked." Just like before, I didn't move or speak or look. I didn't even use the gun that I now carry with me at all times. I just stayed still and stared at the hole until I was sure I was alone again. From that point on, I rarely left my room for very long, and I slept for days at a time. One day, in a fit of anger, I read every poetry book in the house. All I did was give myself nightmares and nosebleeds. In January, the food ran out. A part of me was willing to starve, but doing that would leave my body alone with the stranger that was hiding in the house. Soon I came up with a better plan. The library had a handful of books related to locksmithing. I read each of them cover to cover before going to the door of Papa's office with a handful of hairpins. I was going to pray to the alphabetically arranged gods in there. I would beg them to bring my Papa back home. I knew from my lessons that they weren't really dead, just dreaming. But the door wasn't locked. It pushed right open. Papa's office was a ruin. His desk was flipped over, the coat rack snapped in two, and everything was spread across the floor. The old books, the tubes and wires and careful notes, even the gods. The glass bottles lay in a mound by the window, every one shattered. Their contents had been left to rot away in a confusion of tentacles, eyes, teeth, and wings. It was impossible to tell where one ended and the other began. The voice was behind me again. It smelled of formaldehyde and ashes. "Have you finished dreaming?" All around me, the house began to shudder and shake. The basement roared, the walls groaned. I shut my eyes and ran, passing through something that fluttered like a curtain. I found my way to the front door easily, and just like the office, it was unlocked. It wasn't until I was far, far down Guerin Street that I turned back to look. My home was sinking into the earth, collapsing in around itself. All around me, strangers were gathering to watch. None of them noticed me. I was just a girl in a black polonaise. Do you see now? Those gods are still down there, ugly and festering as one. That was what went wrong. There were too many of them there in the study, and their dreams reached the great below. That, I think, is why Papa left. He knew it was only a matter of time. Every crescent moon, I go to appease those gods with prayers and red offerings buried in the soil. It isn't much, but it's enough. If you go through with this, if you pave over that sacred ground, I won't be able to reach them, and I don't know what will happen then. Do you see now? Do you understand? You don't, do you? You think my story is just that, a story. Fine, go. Run away, all of you, just go. That's it, every last one of you. Who are you? I said you could leave. What do you think you're doing? Oh. Look how you've grown.
Ophelia Explains It All was written by Bruno III. It was produced by Nicole Jorge, Yuri Sacharow, and Aaron Redacted. It was read by Addison Peacock. Our unpaid scientific advisor is Adam J Thaxton. The Channel AB3 theme was written and performed by Rachel F. Williams. The Channel AB3 logo was designed by Antonio G. Are you enjoying the show? Then please consider leaving us a review at your podcast service of choice. If you'd like to support the show financially, either by becoming a recurring subscriber or making a one-time donation, please see the links in the show notes. Are you in the market to sell your home, find a new home, or just explore real estate investment opportunities? Don't hesitate to get in touch with me at albertbruno3@kw.com. This is Channel AB3, is distributed and licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 4.0 International License.